Go to any heavy equipment auction in the United States right now and watch what happens when a clean, late 1990s Caterpillar excavator crosses the block. It goes for money that does not make sense on paper. Older machine, more hours, no telematics, no touchscreen, no warranty. And it will often beat a newer one on price per operating hour once the bidding settles. The people bidding are not collectors, and they are not nostalgic. They are contractors doing arithmetic, and the arithmetic now says that a machine you are allowed to fix is worth more than a machine you are not. That is new. It is worth understanding why, because it is not really about age. For most of the history of this industry, a used machine was a compromise. You bought one because you could not afford new, and everybody involved understood the trade. Fewer hours left, older hydraulics, a cab that had already been lived in for 6,000 hours by somebody who ate lunch in it every day. That trade has quietly inverted in one specific band of the market, and the band has nothing to do with build quality. Start with what changed under the hood. A modern Caterpillar excavator runs its engine, emissions, and hydraulic functions through proprietary electronics, and the diagnostic layer on top of that is CAT Electronic Technician, the dealer software. If your machine throws a fault code tied to the emissions system, the engine control module, or the hydraulic controller, the independent shop that has kept your fleet alive for 20 years is looking at a screen it cannot read. That is not a mechanical failure. The shop has the wrenches, the lift, the parts supplier, and the experience. What it does not have is a password. And a password is a strange thing to discover you needed, halfway through a job, on a machine you already paid for. So the call goes to the dealer. A diagnostic visit gets billed before any parts, before any labor, before anybody has fixed anything. And if the dealer technician is booked out, the machine sits on the site earning nothing every hour it is not digging. Caterpillar says this is about safety and warranty compliance. Operators say it is about control. Both of those can be true at once, and the operator still has a machine parked on a Thursday. Now here is where it stops being an argument and becomes a market. One man described the whole sequence in a comment on this channel. He had run Caterpillar skid steers his entire working life. A drive hose blew. He photographed it and sent the picture in, so there was no mystery about the failure. The fee just to have somebody come and look was $500, paid up front. The technician who arrived was not permitted to bring the part. It was a Friday. The machine was needed Sunday. The second visit happened Monday. He paid a penalty for the job he could not finish, got billed 2 separate service fees on top of that, on a machine still under warranty, and then called a Kubota dealer before his own machine was even repaired. He traded out and ate the loss on the trade. 50 people pressed like on that comment, not because it was dramatic, because it was familiar. A second man, in the same comment section, described buying a used Caterpillar 304E, making one trip to his local dealer, and calling the whole episode a $45,000 learning experience. 27 people liked that one. Neither man says a word against the machine itself. Before we go further, if you run the iron or turn the wrenches on it, subscribe and turn on the bell. That single story contains every input a buyer needs, and buyers have started to act on it. Repair Lockout is now the second largest complaint theme in this channel's entire comment corpus. 16 separate people raising it unprompted, behind only the broader complaint about finance people running engineering companies. The most liked comment on the 98,000 view video is 4 words long: permission to repair. 245 people liked it, and directly underneath, the market consequence, stated by a viewer in one line, that took 91 likes. No wonder why people are searching for old abandoned equipment. That is a purchasing decision, written in public, by somebody who has already made it. The weight is the other half of it, and the weight is worse in the places where machines earn the most. A retired equipment buyer put the whole problem in 9 words that took 55 likes. In the middle of nowhere downtime is the problem. Another described lead times on new iron, running out to 2 years on some orders, and mining operations buying used trucks from overseas rather than wait. When a delivery date moves past the life of the contract the machine was bought for, the new machine has stopped being an option regardless of how good it is. The economics behind it are not complicated once you separate the 2 halves of what you are buying. There is the iron, which is the boom, the undercarriage, the hydraulic pump, the diesel engine. And there is the permission layer, which is the software that decides who is allowed to talk to that iron. Buy a machine from 1998, and you are buying only the first half. There is no second half to be locked out of. A diesel engine, a hydraulic pump, and a mechanic with wrenches, and the machine runs. Buy a new one, and you are buying both halves, and only one of them is actually yours. One viewer put the ownership question in terms that got 22 likes and are hard to argue with. When you buy to own, he wrote, you make a bet against failure of that machine, and if the bet is won, the owner makes a profit from his own property. By introducing subscription, the manufacturers are basically installing a property tax on the owner. Property tax is exactly the right frame, because a tax does not care whether the machine breaks. It applies either way. There is a version of this that reaches past construction entirely. A dealership employee working on John Deere equipment in Africa described being issued an app that requires a timed inspection every time a technician touches a machine, with questions that require stripping components to answer. The farmer does not want the inspection. The farmer wants the valve replaced so he can get back in the field. Nobody is paying for the hour the app takes. That is the same policy layer, on a different continent, on a different color of paint. Now scale that from one skid steer to a fleet, and the used market stops looking sentimental. If you run 6 machines, and every diagnostic call costs you a fee plus a weight, your annual cost of ownership has a line in it that did not exist when you started. If 2 of those 6 are old enough that your own mechanic can open them, those 2 are cheaper to run per hour than the newer ones, before you count fuel. Contractors noticed. So did the auction houses. And the switchers are not drifting into the void. They are landing somewhere specific. Between May of 2025 and April of 2026, the best-selling new financed compact track loader in the United States was a Kubota, and Kubota led the category at 27.1% of the market. The man with the blown drive hose called a Kubota dealer on the Monday. He was not being original. He was joining a queue. There is a version of this story where the manufacturers are simply greedy, and that version is too easy. The honest version is that the lockout was profitable in a specific and measurable way, and the cost of it landed somewhere nobody at head office measures. Caterpillar can count diagnostic revenue. It cannot count the Friday. That asymmetry is the whole engine of this. One side of the ledger is instrumented down to the invoice. The other side is a man in a yard on a Friday afternoon, deciding, privately and permanently, what color his next machine is going to be. Only one of those shows up in a quarterly review, and it is not the one that decides the next decade. And that asymmetry explains why the policy survived long enough to create a used market working against the new one. Every quarter the fee showed up as service revenue. The contractor, who quietly bought a 1999 machine instead of a new one, never filed a complaint, never appeared in a survey, and never showed up on any slide. He just did not come back. That is the part that makes this hard to correct from the inside. A complaint is data. A canceled order is data. A man who quietly decides that his next machine will be a 1999 model, or orange instead of yellow, generates nothing at all until the market share number moves, and by then he has been gone for 3 years. There is one more piece of evidence, and it comes from the other side of the same industry. John Deere fought this identical battle with farmers for years over locked tractor software, and eventually signed a right-to-repair memorandum opening diagnostic access to independent shops. That did not happen because Deere wanted to share. It happened because farmers organized, state legislators introduced bills, and the political cost of fighting rose above the cost of complying. Right-to-repair legislation is now expanding across the United States, with bills specifically targeting heavy equipment. Caterpillar has not made a comparable commitment, which puts the company in an awkward spot. The lockout is still generating revenue, the used market is still bidding against it, and the legislative floor underneath it keeps moving. Any one of those 3 on its own is manageable. All 3 at once is how a policy that made sense in a spreadsheet stops making sense in a market. Subscribe if you want more of these. This channel covers the real story behind the machines, the part the dealer never puts in the brochure. So what does a buyer actually do with all of this? The practical move is not to go and buy a 25-year-old excavator. Older machines burn more fuel, they are harder on the operator over a 12-hour shift, and parts availability gets thin. Anybody telling you the 1999 machine is straightforwardly better is selling you something. The move is to price the permission layer before you sign. Ask the dealer, in advance and in writing, what happens when the machine throws an emissions or hydraulic fault on a Friday afternoon. Ask what the diagnostic visit costs. Ask whether the technician is permitted to bring a part on the first trip or only on the second. Ask whether your own mechanic can read and clear a code. Those 4 answers are the real price of the machine, and none of them appear on the sticker. If the dealer cannot answer them, that is itself an answer. A dealer who knows those numbers cold has been asked before, by people who were counting. The men bidding up old iron at auction have already worked this out. They are not buying nostalgia, and they are not making a statement. They are buying a machine that cannot lock them out on a Friday, and they have decided that is worth paying for. Every extra dollar on a 1998 excavator is a contractor pricing that risk in public, one auction lot at a time, and the manufacturers can read those results as easily as anybody else.